Proud of our losing team. We never won.
All right, well, this one is working.
Okay.
So we are rolling. You could state your name and then kind of just talk a little bit about before you went in into Vietnam.
Military.
The military, yeah.
Yeah, my name's Alan Jinette. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I went to UFOG. I graduated in '65, and I spent the summer kind of bumming around, and then when fall came, I joined and enlisted in the military, and I stayed in the military. Eventually went to jump school, became a paratrooper, and I did that because I thought I'd be going to Fort Campbell up here, but I never got to Fort Campbell except for 30 days, and that was later on down the road there. But I thought I'd be at Fort Campbell, and I wound up. They sent me to the 82nd Airborne over in Fort Bragg, and I stayed over there for 18 months. Got transferred for 30-day TDY, temporary duty at Fort Campbell, where I was trained in jungle warfare. And I didn't think nothing about it other than it was just training. And I went back to Fort Bragg, and as soon as I got to Fort Bragg, they told me, don't unpack your bags, you're going overseas. I said, where are we going? And he said, you're going to Vietnam. And so that's how I wound up in Vietnam. That was the early part of 1968. And I went over there. First place we landed was in Chulai, which was a beautiful, beautiful country over there. The South China Sea on one side, the mountains on the other. If there wasn't a war going on, you would have thought, well, this would be a great place to vacation, and I think it is now. I was there, I think, for 3 weeks, and then we were sent north to Phu Bai, which is right on the DMZ. I spent the rest of my tour up on the line, and we were hit pretty regularly. You know, just about every night they would attack our position, and they would send what they call sappers, or suicide enemy troops that would come in, and we went on patrols, and there was a lot of things I saw on in the country. You know, that some was good and a lot of it was bad, but I met some good people over there. That's the good thing about it. I met some good people that kind of helped me in my tour in that area. I counted on a lot of the locals when we needed food, because sometimes we would be without rations, and they would provide us with food and everything, and so I can't complain about that. But the thing about the war was it was terrible. It was every night you don't know what's going to happen, and you couldn't sleep good. It was hot. Even in the rain season, you're going to be wet all the time, it seemed like, you know, and you go to sleep at night, you're going to sweat, you know. And I persevered through that tour. I don't know if you want me to answer any questions about.
You can keep going with the story, or
free falling.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, what was like a day-to-day like when you were stationed out there?
Okay, I think I told the class that time there was not a typical day in Vietnam. There were days that were just boring, traditional routine.
Hello, students. It's that time of day. You've had 15 minutes to gather your belongings.
Whatever you need.
So unless you are under the direct supervision of a teacher, coach, or sponsor,
This happened last
it's time to
time.
exit the building. Teachers, if you don't mind, please step to your doors and send students our way, and we'll make sure they exit. And students, remember, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
All right, sorry about that.
It is run like a bar. So anyway, like I said, a typical day in Vietnam was a lot of boredom, and then there was a lot of excitement. You know, punctuated by a lot of excitement. There was a lot of really bad stuff going on, killings and stuff like that. And my experience in there was I had a lot of shock, seeing some things that I didn't want anybody else to see. I saw a lot of slaughter, and war is, from my estimations, the war is hell. It's really hell, like Sherman said. And it was just something that I would not want anybody else to experience. I feel for the troops today because I know what they're going through too, and it's amazing the things you see and experience. It was psychologically, it kind of messed me up because today I have help with the psychiatrist. I go through once a month. The VA's taking care of my issues. We were exposed to Agent Orange. That was one of the things that for a long time they denied it. And finally, I think about 8 years ago, they lost a lawsuit. And the government has to pay out for the survivors because we lost, I think they told me over 50,000 returning veterans had died from the result of Agent Orange, and they're still dying. They're still dying. Suicide today, I understand, is a prevalent thing too. About 19 veterans a day kill themselves, and that's another tragedy of the war. It's not just what happens on the battlefield, but what happens after. And I don't know if you wanted me to get any description into any incidences. I can name a few incidences that'll be kind of light. We were in a situation one night where we were being hit. There was about 250 Viet Cong coming in, or NVA, they were North Vietnamese, and they come in at night, and they call them sappers because they come in to bring down your strength. They do anything, they probe your perimeter, and this particular night, they hit us with the mortars first, as they always did, and we had 5 new guys in the compound, and I was head NCO on that end of the perimeter, and so everybody fell out and went down to this Vietnamese grave site. The Vietnamese graves were built in a circle. They were stoned in circles, like a pit, and the grave was in the middle, the mound was in the middle, and there would always be a gate, and that gate would be, from what I understand, was supposed to be the gate to heaven, and that was their belief. And so we used it like a foxhole, perfect foxhole. And so all these guys broke into it, and I went in there and I was looking around. I was trying to set the men up in the positions and tell them where this, you're here. And I had one guy at the gate there, and I looked around. Nobody had a weapon. 5 guys. I said, "Where are your weapons?" And they said, "Oh, they're back at our hooch." And so they jumped out with no weapons, and so I grabbed a guy, and we had to go over the ridge to get back to their tent. It was a tent, not a hooch. And as we're going toward the tent, the enemy's firing big 50 rockets over the ridge, and I mean they're like waist high. And I remember as I'm running across there, I keep seeing them go in front of me, and I hear them behind me, and I kept thinking if one of them hit me, it'll cut me in half. But you got to do it, you got to keep moving forward, and because that's what we were taught to do. And I got through it. I didn't get hit, of course, but and neither one of us got hit. But we did get the weapons back to the men, and we sat down in that position and held it that night. We were very fortunate because the enemy were going up a draw, so they didn't have an idea that we were on top of that ridge, except for the ones that were shooting over the ridge, and they were far away. And the next day was the biggest tragedy of all, because after daylight came, we had to go down and try to find the wounded or the dead. And I remember going down into that draw, and there was a trail of some kind of slimy substance on the ground. And what we discovered as we went down that draw, looked where that trail went, and it was a man who had been hit. One of the enemy had been hit, and 2 of his friends had tried to drag him out by his feet, and they were shot down. They were killed. And what it was, that there was the back of his head, his brains were coming out. And so it was like a snail trail in the jungle. And that always stays in my mind. So I see that all the time. Later on, we went up into the little village that was close by to reconnoiter the area, and we went in there, and there was some evidence of enemy troops in that area. So we went in, and the village was empty. And we looked around, and I'm looking around, and I see something sticking out of the ground. And I looked closer, and I went over to it. It was an arm sticking out of the ground. And what they'd done, they had dug a pit, and they put all the villagers in the pit, and they buried them alive. So there were several people buried alive. So this is kind of the brutality of the war. And like I said, it's stuff that'll always stay in your brain. You see it in your mind, you sleep about it at night, and you try to run it out of your mind. And for me, I had, coming out of the military, I used other substances to kind of drown it out of my thoughts, and I did that for many years, and then I quit drinking and everything, and then I had to do something different because they were coming back, the dreams. And so what I do today is I get help with the VA. They give me the psychiatrist, and which has benefited me quite a bit. And of course, the irony of that is you got to go visualize everything you saw before, and you go through it again and again and again and again till it kind of loses its potency. And I can't really say a lot more about the VA other than they've done a great job with me. I know a lot of people complain, but sometimes you just got to be patient. You know, life comes at you. Life doesn't travel in a straight line. That's what I learned in life so far. I am not sorry that I went in the military. If they needed me again, I'm too old now, but if they ever needed me again, I'd be willing to go back and do what I had to do. And that's what I was taught in the military, you know. Again, that's what we were taught, to go forward, attack, and not to retreat. And another thing that happened when I was over there, I had friends, I lost several friends, and they were good guys, really good guys. We had got a bond, like the brotherhood we were talking about earlier. And I lost several of those friends, and I saw some of them taken away on stretchers. One of my favorite guys was Castellanos, who was a Californian, and he was a Spaniard. He was a Spaniard, not a Mexican, but a Spaniard. I made a mistake of calling him at one time. He said, "No, I'm a Spaniard," and I found there was a difference. And the last time I saw him, he was in the field, 2 broken legs. And I ran up to him and to comfort him and see what was going on. He was sitting there laughing. And I'm thinking, he's not had any medication. I don't know why he's laughing. And he said, "Man, I'm going home." And I mean, he was that happy. He was that happy. And the next thing I know, they're taking him in a helicopter. And of course, the irony of that is when you're on the battlefield, they can come and get you and take you away when you're shot, killed, or wounded. And but the guys that are still alive, you got to keep going. You're left. And a helicopter goes away in the distance, and you're here, and life comes back at you. And that's something that I'll always remember too. And there's so many other stories that I couldn't even think about. Some of mine, I have to bring them up because it's been so many years that my thoughts are kind of jumbled up in my head. And every now and then the thought comes, "Oh, I remember when that happened. I remember what happened there, you know." But I'm just so glad that I had the opportunity to live through all that and to get home to have a family. I got a good family today, and I'm blessed with like a really good family. And I can't complain one bit about that. And how much more time we got?
Just as long as you want.
Oh, as long as I want, okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, let's see, I'll start. No. Let's see, I'm trying to think.
I was gonna ask you what like what's your mindset like when you're going day to day like at war? Like what would keep you like going? What was your mindset? What motivated you?
Well, motivation is to stay alive. That was the major motivation. Like I said, when you're in the campsite or in the camp, you got daily duties. You know, you're maintaining equipment. In my case, I was a staff sergeant, so I had the responsibility of a squad of men, and they were underneath me, and I would keep up with them and make sure that they kept their equipment tied up and ready to go and things like that. You know, mealtime was always a big one, as it always is. You know, mealtime was really big. If you were in the rear in the camp, you're going to get hot meals. But out in the boonies, you're not going to get a hot meal. You're going to live off them K rations. And then there was a period of time that I had, we'd gone on a patrol up in the Ashaw Valley, which is the Valley of the Dragon. That's what it means. And we'd go up in that on a mission by helicopter, and we got up in there, and they dropped us off. Now the mission was to go and scout around, look for enemy movement, you know, because it was used as like a highway to bring supplies for the enemy down south. And so we stayed up there a few days, and then they were supposed to come and get us. Well, they couldn't come and get us because it started raining. We had the monsoon was right on the edge of that. And the monsoon season came, and so they couldn't come in to get us, and we had to walk back out. And that was a 5-day walk. And a 20-minute helicopter ride turned into a 5-day walk, so that's the difference. I mean, it wasn't fun, but, and then we ran out of rations because we didn't plan on being in there that long. That's where the Vietnamese people came in. We'd find little villas, and we'd go in there, and we'd tell them, you know, what's going on, and for the most part, they'd feed us and provide us some rest, a place to rest. And we worked our way back, and the irony of that was when I got back, I really got mad at this XO. He was the executive officer, and we went into the tent, and after we got back to report to duty, report that we were back, and he got real mad, and he was mad because he had put me on a report that we were gone. We'd been missing in action or dead, and we weren't. And that just threw his paperwork off, and that really, I mean, after 5 days, you're just so angry. And I know I had my weapon, and I was flicking the automatic on it back and forth and taking the safety off, and I'm thinking maybe I ought to just grease him, you know, but I didn't do it, you know, of course, but it was another adventure every day just about. And then, like I say, a lot of boredom with some adventure thrown in. I remember coming home now, when they called me up and said I was getting ready to go back, they give you a little lecture where they want you to come and re-enlist. Because my time had come up. My ATS expiration time service had come up, and so they give you that talk. You know, first sergeant calls me in, and he says, you know, you need to stay here. You know, you could make a good promotions, and I could get you promoted up to an E7, and just all kinds of offers, you know. And I thought about it, and I thought about it for a couple of minutes. It didn't take long, but I thought about it, and I said, no, I'm ready to go home. This is not going to go. It's not going to go the way it should, because of the restrictions we had over in combat. You know, there were places where we couldn't cross a river. Now, the enemy could shoot at us, but we weren't supposed to fire back at them because they were in Cambodia or something like that. And I didn't like the politics of that. And so I decided to come home. And I remember they sent me from the north, they sent me down to Benoit. Benoit is the place where we get together. And I mean, Benoit, from the up country to Benoit, was a totally different place. Instead of living in a tent, you had a hooch. It was a structure with sandbags around it, and had a metal roof, wooden frames screened in. I mean, it had bunk beds in there, and it was like a hotel. I mean, it really is fancy compared to what we've been doing. I took my first, I guess you'd call it a shower in 6 months, and because most time we bathed around a stream or something, and took a shower, and I was so excited to have a place where I could soap up and bathe that I had filled this garbage can, 50-gallon garbage can with water, and I climbed into it, and I was using like a tub, but with a shower. And so I'm showering myself, And I look over here and there's 2 or 3 young Vietnamese girls, and they've come in there and they're washing clothes. They're using the showers to scrub the clothes. And I'm looking around and I'm naked and I'm going like, but they don't care. In Vietnam, it was a different world. You know, they didn't, nudity over there meant nothing. You know, I mean, when I was in Chile, I went into a bar and I had to go, you know, pee. And I asked the guy behind the counter, I said, where do you go to the bathroom? And he said, out there. So I thought it was an outhouse. And so I went out and there was nothing there but a field. And I went back in, I said, there's no outhouse. He said, no, just pee. So I went back out and I was, my granddaughter's sitting there. And there was a girl's about 15, 16 years old. And as soon as I start to pee, they woke up and they start talking. There's like 2 of them, and they're started talking to me. And I turned around away from them, and they turn around, walk around. And it was a wholly different experience. I did make friends with locals. There was a family that I made, you know, when I was over there in Chile, that they kind of took me in. The girl was, she worked in one of the NCO clubs, and we became good friends. And I was invited to her house, and I took the opportunity to go spend time with the locals. You know, I mean, I always believe in getting to know the locals. You know, that's your asset when you're in a foreign country. And so I went to dinner over at their house, and it was really nice. Invited in. I remember in July, I watched them make a knife. I went down into the village, and there was 2 guys, and they had a tube of bamboo. One of them was blowing like a bellows on the embers to heat up the fire, and the other one was taking broad pieces of metal and beating it out like a blacksmith, and they formed a knife, made a big Bowie knife. You'd love that one. You'd love that one. I should have bought one, but I already had all the stuff I could carry. But that was an interesting experience too, watching them do that. And they were friendly. They were friendly for the most part, and I can't complain about that, you know. And it's funny how human beings as we are, this is my philosophy, and it don't have to be anybody else's, but my philosophy is everybody's the same. Nobody's different. And the guys that we were fighting us because they wanted to maintain the integrity of their country. And that's just the facts. And I understand that today. You know, if somebody were to come here and try to do the same thing in our country, we'd be hiding in the hills. We'd be doing all the stuff. We've become the Viet Cong. So it's something that I've learned a little bit about life, you know. And anybody wants to argue about it, go for it. I'm not going to argue with it. I'm just saying this is what my impression was.
I was going to ask you, how was your life when you came back, and did you stay in the military? Did you get another job? Or
I was getting out. I got out. When I came home, for one thing, I couldn't go. By the way, I had been transferred to 101st when I was in Vietnam, so I wasn't at Fort Campbell, but I was in 101st. And when I came home, there was nothing up at Fort Campbell. Everybody was in Vietnam. So they sent me back to Fort Bragg, where I got out. I took all my equipment. I still had some of the equipment I brought home with me. I think they got my jackets and stuff, because I got all that stuff, signed it off, and I told the supply sergeant, I said, what are you going to do with all this? He said, oh, we're going to burn some of it, and then we'll just probably take it down to an Army surplus somewhere and give it away. And I said, well, can I have it? And he said, yeah, go out there and get it. So I got my steel pot, helmet, got a couple of jackets, sleeping bag, all of those things I kept. And no weapons, nothing of that sort. But so I brought all that home. And then I got home, and it was, the irony of the whole thing was, it seemed like the world turned upside down. Because I come home, I went into my, started out at the bus station downtown here in Nashville. When I got to the bus station, I had to call my brother-in-law. And I told him a couple of days before, I said, I'm coming home, and I'll be home on this date. Can you pick me up? He never showed up. He forgot. He forgot I was there. And that was kind of like the whole thing for a long time. Everybody forgot you. They'd see you. I'd see people I'd gone to school with and stuff like, where you been? Like they thought I went to college or something. Well, I've been overseas. Oh, where you been overseas? Oh, Vietnam. Oh, yeah, you were murdering women and raping children, right? And I said, no, I didn't do none of that. And that fired me up. I didn't like that. So I grew my facial hair, got my hair used to be like yours when I could grow hair. And I just did that because everybody else was doing that at that time in the late 60s. And I figured early 70s, and I figured, you're going to fit in with the crowd. You're going to be a comedian, and if you fit in there, they'll quit asking you questions, and you're drinking with them, you're smoking with them, you're one of the crowd.
It's real interesting because that's, when I interviewed Mr. Ferris, he said he did the same thing when he came back, because not many people accepted vets when they came back, so he just tried to blend in with the crowd, and it took him a while to realize that, like, he needed to do something for himself to be able to go onward in life and not just stay kind of blended in. And,
You do it for a while, yeah. But, when we got off the plane in California coming back, first time we hit the stateside of California, and we got off that first plane from Vietnam, and they said, when you get off the plane, they told us before we got off the plane, you're going to go in a straight line down that fence line, and there's people out there, and they got posters, and they're hollering at you, and they're calling your names, and they'll spit at you, but don't react. Do not do anything. So we did, just keep an eye straight ahead. And so as 125 of us came off that plane together, and we were all NCOs, we were all non-commissioned officers, so we were the same class, But it was, and then of course, people at home, like I say, if you go to a social setting with a lot of people, they were already, mad about the war anyway. I didn't start the war, I was just there. But the thing I was going to say earlier, so I get home I finally get to my sister's house, and I finally hitchhike back into the neighborhood down there in Melrose, and I go in the house, and I'm there for a day or so, and I was noticing on the TV, on the news, they were showing Vietnam on the news. Now that blew me away, because when you're out in the field, you don't see that. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what over the next hill. And that was an eye-opener for me too. I said, they're videoing us here, and they're right out in the field with us.
Did y'all have any news people show up to y'all's camp?
Yes.
Mr. Ferris said that there was that.
They did. They came up on the mountain there one day. I saw them one day, and they were probably a few hours, and they were interviewing soldiers, and then they disappeared. They got on a helicopter, and they got. The helicopter was a horse in Vietnam. It took them everywhere. But yeah, they get on a helicopter and they're gone. And we're in the battle, and they come in, they're like in civilian clothes, and they're going back somewhere to sit and drink beer all afternoon in a bar somewhere south, or in the rear somewhere, But that was another thing. Psychologically, it would kind of mess you up, because you're thinking, the whole world's at war, but now it's just us, and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
How did you kind of, once you got back home and got settled, how did you kind of go onward with life? What did you decide to do? What was your mindset at that point?
Well, for me, I had to get a job. And so I had an art background that I got at this school here. I took commercial art and Ms. Barton's class up there on the other floor. And so I fell back on that, and I got me a job at a place, a department store, Kane Sloan's, which is no longer here. And I worked in the art department where we did the Sunday ads, like back then they had newspapers and they had those Sunday ads. And I worked in that department for a while, and then from that point on, I got an offer from a company called Washington Manufacturing. And Washington Manufacturing was a big clothing manufacturer here in Nashville. And I got an offer to go there to learn how to design women's clothes, upper garments. And so I took advantage of it because the pay was a lot better. And it was something I thought might be interesting, and so I took them up on that. And then I was there, I was training with a guy who had been with the company for 40 years, you know, he'd been around for a while. And he was showing me the basics, you know, pattern making and stuff like that. And I was doing that, and then the company said, we're gonna send you to Kansas City to go to designing clothing design school. And so they sent me out there, and that's where I went to school. And I learned how to make, design women's clothes. I came back, I worked at that company when I got back, of course, and I worked on some of the clothes that they did at Opryland when they built the Opryland. And I worked on some of the costumes that they did for the some of the employees, they had for the people who worked in the park, and then some of the stuff they did up on the stages, because they had a show back there. And I did some of that. In fact, they had a drafting department over at Opryland when they first built it, and that's where we would go over there and work out of that a little bit. And then some of the stuff that they did on the show, and I did some of those clothes there too. And then I thought my life was set. I mean, it looked like it was moving right along. And like I said, life doesn't travel in a straight line. So in 1974, this one right here was coming along. She was going to be born. And the company cut back their department because all the clothing was being made overseas. It started moving over to the other countries, you know, because they worked cheaper. And so they had cut back on the department, and they cut me off. They said, you're going to have to find another job. So that's what I did. And I worked up until the last day. It was on a Saturday. I didn't plan on it. If I'd known they were going to get rid of me, I'd have quit the first week. But, so I didn't have a job. And I was kind of struggling around. The first time I got a chance to make a living or work and get paid, I got a job with a construction company. So I went from drawing table to working on digging ditches and putting sewer lines in. And I met my best friend there, actually. Years later, we're still good friends. And I worked there for a while, and then we were hanging out on the weekends, and we'd go to my friend's house and play volleyball. That was a big thing. We'd have a cookout, you know, grill out, and drink beer, and play volleyball, you know. And there was a guy I met there, and his name was Lacey, last name Lacey. And we got to meet talking, you know, and he was asking me one day, he said, your wife, you know, the baby's still coming. And I said, yeah, she won't be long, she'll be here. He said, well, you need to get a better job than this. He said, you need to, because whenever you work construction, rains, you don't work, you know. And so he recommended I go out to the railroad. And so that's where I wound up, at the railroad. And it took me a while to get there, you know. It took me a few months to sign on, even though they were hiring in this area. They had a place out there at Radnor Yards, and whenever the weather was bad, I'd just go out there in the morning. And finally, the guy who was the one that hired everybody, Mr. Chamberlain, he got tired of me being there, I think. I'd go out there and have 2 cups of coffee in the morning. I'd sit in his office before he got there, and I sat just inside the door. And he would come in that door, and I'd say, you want a cup of coffee? And when I did it, he'd jump about 2 feet in the air. And he told me, he said, I got to hire you to keep you out of my office, you know. So that's how I got that job. And then I stayed there. I retired 31 years, 6 months, or 5 months. And now I don't work. I get paid not to work.
And like after you had all these jobs and all that, did the war still affect you? And if it did, how did you get over that and kind of find some acceptance?
Okay, now we get down to the hard stuff. I am an alcoholic. I was a heavy drinker. My daughter could testify to that. Raw eggs and bourbon for breakfast. I drank like that for many years, and that was, from my understanding now with the psychiatrist, that was to get away from all those nightmares. And because what I do at night, I would increase my alcohol intake just to pass out. And I hope you never experience that, but you can drink enough, you will pass out. But I'd also drink when I woke up. So it was just, and then it got to where it constant 24 hours a day. And that was my secret to getting away from all that. And it worked for a while, and then finally I got to a point and got some trouble, like some people do. And I got in enough trouble that I had to do something different. And I couldn't drink. I can't drink. In fact, I don't drink normal. And so I got some help with some people. And today I hadn't drank in going on 33 years now. But when I quit drinking, the nightmares came back after a few years. I was having middle of the night screaming and stuff like that. And my significant other made a comment, you know, you need to do something about that disruptive sleep. And then so that's when I went to the VA, and that's when they hooked me up with a psychiatrist so I could get some help. And so it's helping quite a bit. So there's help for anybody that has mental problems, and I do have mental problems. I would recommend anybody that needs that to go do it. Because it's vital. It's vital to your survival. So.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I was also just wondering, kind of on a lighter tone, what do you enjoy to do? What are your hobbies?
Hobbies?
What?
She's sitting right down there. No, I like to help people. That's what I do today. I try to help people. You know, I mean, I help people in recovery. I do that. I like to. I'm not a fisherman. I don't like to fish. I do have. I've caught fish actually, but I like. Gosh, you know, you got me off guard there. I do like motorcycles when I got one running, and I like to canoe. I like to go down on the Buffalo River. I've done that for about 23 years. I take a bunch of people down there, and we canoe in the summer, and that's a fun thing to do. And I like caves. I like to go into caves. I like to travel. I've traveled to 9 countries since I got retired. You know, I got time to do that and meet other cultures and people like that. And I like to get out and walk around. You know, we did a deal last year where we went out west and went out in the desert, went out in the Grand Canyon, stuff like that. And those are, to me, they're fun. What are you looking at? And they followed me. They went out behind me. And the kids got to go, oh, I'm sorry, I'm losing my tag. But those are things that I like to do. Something active, you know, be an active person. And then I help people just to be a good neighbor. You know, I mean, I try to help my neighbor. I got a neighbor, he's a musician, he travels, and he can't keep his yard up because sometimes out of town a lot, and I go over and cut his yard or something like that. And he tries to pay me, and I said, you can't pay me. I mean, I'm already paid, you know. But things like that, just stay busy. That's a vital thing to survive.
Just like finding a purpose, just something to
find a purpose and do it. And there's plenty of things to be done, help the people. We recently prepared meals for about 100 families here. I think it was it Thanksgiving or Christmas? And the girls helped out. They get involved. I mean, they're ready to go too. And it makes you feel good when you do stuff like that, you know. But for me, that's just it. It's be a good neighbor, be a good citizen, and try to get rid of the past. But you won't ever forget the past. But it can be your best asset, though.
What's something that you think that just the society and the world could learn from the stuff that you went through, the 60s, you could say?
60s? I don't remember the 60s. What are you talking about?
Just like the Vietnam era, because I know there was a big social movement during that time.
Well, I think what you could get from it, I said at the beginning, war is no good. I think as a people, we should all try to come together. You know, I know that's a hard case to put on anybody, but I think people are more alike than they are different. I like the Native Americans. I'm a very adamant about the, or not adamant, I'm really pro First Nation people. That's the thing I did when I went out west and see the Wallapai, and I've got Cherokee friends, and I've got Lakota Sioux friends. I had 3 Lakota in my outfit when I was in Vietnam, and I was raised in the era in the 50s where the Indians were the bad guys. Every movie you saw, the Indians were the bad guys. They scalped the white man, all that. That's BS. But, the fact is, they're good people. And I've had a couple of the Lakota Sioux who were friends that helped me when I was going through a depression. And they took me to their sweat lodge. And they took me in as a brother, you know, and guided me and to help me to overcome that depression. You know, and that sweat lodge was a major factor in that happening. And I believe they had it right. You know, they had it right. And if there's any peoples that ever been put down or messed up with, Native Americans are the worst, because they've been, we're on their land right now, you know. But yeah, it's things like that just kind of keeps me focused on what I need to be doing. You know, try to be the best person I can until I check out. But I will check out one day. Spoiler alert, you know, we all check out. But
my goal with this videoing everything is that it will live past all of us.
It will.
So that's why I've been doing the camera. So it was originally brought up because well, next week I'm interviewing Mr. Jerry Neal, who's a World War II veteran.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of sparked my interest in starting this. And I just really want to capture these moments because I mean they're fading away.
What the veterans, yeah.
Yes, sir. And just keeping it on video. I think having a visual image and a story behind it is just very important. So.
Well, I try to, I like helping young people, you know. I mean, society's different since I was growing up, you know. Back in our days, we were the neighborhood kids. We'd go anywhere in the neighborhood and ride our bicycles. And hell, I'd ride a bicycle downtown and think nothing about it. Nobody's going to kidnap us. Well, they'd bring us back if they did, but it was an easier time. And I hate it that kids are so restricted now, and it should be a freer opportunity for all of them, you know. And these kids, well, she's not a kid, she's a young girl right there, a young lady, and she's far older than you think in her mind and attitude. But I think they all deserve a good chance. It's like I told the class when I was speaking that day, that you're the future. You are the future, and take it and do the best you can with it.
Kind of segueing into that, I asked Mr. Ferris this, and I'm intending on asking every veteran this. What's one piece of advice you would leave for the future?
For the future?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, that's a good one. One piece.
Or two.
Or two.
Or as many as you want. Just.
Well, I guess it goes back to what I said a minute ago. You know, be the best person you can. Be the best person you can be, no matter who you are, and stay focused on everything around you so you don't get sidetracked. And I think that's the best advice I could give anybody. And then you're still going to make mistakes. That's good to know that, but then again, mistakes are some of the best lessons we could ever get from them. You know, I mean, adversity is something that we are blessed with adversity, so that God can show love for us and show us a way out. You know, and just just pay attention to the signs. You know.
Do you have any other last words or messages that you would want to leave to whoever's watching this?
Whoever's watching. Gosh, I can't think now. You got me bottlenecked up there. I think I really said it. You know, when I said that, that's as plain as it gets. Just do the best you can. You know, and don't let anything. Don't let a failure disappoint you. It's like my job. When I said job, I didn't have to go out in the woods and harm myself or anything. thing, because that was, a lot of people, that's what they think, you know? And I don't do that. Stay positive, stay positive. I think that's the big thing. Stay positive, and it'll help you, you know? And I think my dad was like that, you know, I got a little bit of him in me, and I think I'm glad I do. Because there's things he taught me that when he was talking about it, I thought he was crazy. You know, but the things he said were pretty wise. But you know, you don't get wisdom at your age. You know, wisdom is gotten from experience. Experience is what you got to go through to get to the end there. Unfortunately, we can't start out 12 years old, we're wise. You know, you can be a wise guy, but you don't have to be like that. But anyway,
Yeah.
is that it?
I appreciate you coming out here.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I
Good luck
will-
in your school next year.
Thank you. I will let you know and show you the final copy once this is done, and you can come back to the library whenever you like, and you can see it. I'm planning on putting a QR code with all the
That's what
videos, all the
I'm
interviews on there. So, I mean, you can even go and watch other veteran stories if you'd
Okay.
be interested in that.
All right.
But yeah,
Well, I know Ferris was a Marine, and to him and I, we share the base camp with the Marines, so I don't have anything against the Marines. They always play it up like we're enemies, but we're not. We're there for the same job.